Thought Leaders at GDI is a new event series at the Gottlieb Duttweiler Institute. It provides a platform for prominent pioneering thinkers like Kjel Nordström, the enfant terrible of the new world of business. He talks to audiences all over the world and is known for his thought-provoking workshops and very interactive and dynamic seminars. The 2009 Thinkers 50 ranked him top 23 globally and top 5 in Europe. Hi, Dr. Nordström. Welcome to the Gottlieb Duttweiler Institute and welcome to Switzerland.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Is it your first time in Zurich?
No, I have been here many times. One of my favorite cities, actually, of Europe.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Your first book that you published became very, very famous. It was translated into more than 30 languages. It was called Funky Business. What are the main themes of your second book called Karaoke Capitalism?
Well, karaoke is a Japanese word. Kara means empty. Oke means orchestra. Empty orchestra. And everybody knows what karaoke is about. That is basically that you are in a room where you sing along. That's the whole idea. Or where you try to sing, imitate someone else, Michael Jackson or Madonna or whoever. Now, that's fun and fine, but it's not a very good idea when you do business to copy other people. And what we have seen over the last 20-25 years, due to internet and traveling and information, the fact that we can distribute information so easily, is that it's also very easy to copy someone. You know, clothes, flat screens, cameras, bicycles, cars, whatever. You can copy it. And you can get hold of the information and you can make something that is rather similar. So what we have seen in a number of industries is basically that the products, the services, have come so close to each other that you can hardly tell the difference anymore. I think a very clear-cut case, is if you go into a store and take a look at flat screens. It's just flat screens, flat screens, flat screens, flat screens. And you can't tell the difference. Is it the Toshiba? Is it Hitachi? Is it and then comes.
Yeah. The workshop today is about life after karaoke capitalism.
Yes.
How exactly does that look like?
It looks like us having to break out of this bubble of copying each other and understand that capitalism, or shall I say, the hard core of capitalism and the hard core of creating a company is actually being unique. Looking for the uniqueness, looking for the originality, and in a way, as you say in English, daring to be different.
In your opinion, what are the main reasons for the economic crisis?
There are a couple of reasons, I would say. Number one is the internationalization of our economies. It started already after the Second World War. Slowly but surely, we started to internationalize companies, internationalize our banks, and internationalize almost any human activity. And that is fine. And it has created a lot of wealth. There should be no doubt about that. Been a great success story for Switzerland, particularly for small countries like Switzerland and Sweden and Holland. This has been great news. However, today it's difficult for a small country like Switzerland or Sweden to control its economy. Why? Because UBS is all over the place, as you know, all over the world. Siemens, you can't control Siemens. Siemens is in 192 countries. Switzerland can't do much about that. So one reason why we ran into problems here is basically because this was out of control. No nation state controlled the financial industry. Not even the United States, which became very clear. Number two, the second reason for the crisis is, of course, that the level of innovation, new products in the financial industry, new tools that you can work with, have been very, very, very high. And some of those tools are rather sophisticated in terms of it's math. It's mathematically sophisticated. And on average, people are not so good with math.
True. I agree.
And what we saw here is basically that we accumulated risks in the system and no one was aware of what we were doing because they didn't fully understand those tools that they were using. A third reason is what people then have said, this greed thing. And to a certain extent, I think that plays a little bit of a role, that everybody was striving for growth and quick growth, which means that you took big risks. And when you take big risks, you can fail. And some fail here.
I want to get back to you on America. You mentioned that they were, or they are still, you know, quite powerful, and with like Brazil, India, China being world players, does America still have the role that it used to have, or is their power sort of declining?
There will, of course, be changes in the world economies. China is huge in terms of number of people. So in 10, 15 years, if they continue roughly as they are doing now, they will be a little bit bigger than the United States. However, that does not mean that you are better because you are bigger. Most probably the United States will continue to be the center of innovation in the world, where new lifestyles are born, where new technologies are created, where energy-saving technology will be the most sophisticated in the world. Probably the US will continue to have that role for the foreseeable future, because good people from all around the world move to the US. You know, researchers, doctors, hockey players, anyone moves to the US. If you're good, that's a great place to be. And I cannot see how that will happen in China. It's very difficult to move to China and become a part of the Chinese society. It's very different from what you are used to here in Switzerland. I have lived there and I really know it. So for the foreseeable future, people will, successful researchers, entrepreneurs or what have you, will probably be attracted to California, to Harvard, to Stanford and those places.
So that trend will continue despite, for example, the last government who were a little bit more restrictive about, you know, letting foreigners in, for example.
You know, I think Mr. Bush was a parenthesis in the American history and the American logic, because the success of America, the fact that America has been unbelievably successful. I mean, this is a country that is only 200 years-ish, a little bit more, is based on the fact that they have been very open to the rest of the world. Immigration is the key to the success of America. If you stop the immigration, you also stop the growth engine of America. Now, the last administration under Mr. Bush W. Jr. flirted, as you know, with closing the borders and putting restrictions on immigration. And that is a very bad idea. And I think the US will change direction under the present administration. They are very well aware of the dangers of closing America.
Let's hope so. What do you mean when you say a modern company is like a cocktail party?
Yes, a modern company is a little bit like a cocktail party because it's very much about sharing information back and forth in every direction. And this is the whole idea with the cocktail party, that you say hello to the president and hello to you and hello to everybody, as many as possible actually. And in a company today, it's a matter of getting information to flow freely back and forth between individuals, because the better the information flow, the better we can use the total knowledge of the company. This is easy to say and difficult to do, because in companies We have things like departments and divisions and sectors, you know, that create silos and walls, so the information do not flow very freely back and forth. So this is a little bit of a challenge to create such an organization where information can flow freely.
So do you think businesses today are like this already, or how will they look like in the future?
Some are like this already, but more companies will look like this, absolutely. I mean, we shouldn't forget that many of the companies that are big today, Nestlé, Philips of Holland, Ericsson of Sweden, Siemens of Germany, are companies that are over 100 years old. In many cases, over 100 years old. If they were a human being, they would be dead. But that means that they have long traditions of how to do things. Traditions that were good at that time, 1920s, 1940s, 1950s. Ideas that were powerful at that time. The ideas that are powerful in our time are somewhat different, of course. So it will take some time to change these big organizations, but they will also move in this direction. Somewhat slower, though.
You've said that the guiding themes for a successful business are female, personal, and simple. Isn't that a little bit paradox with the majority of CEOs and political leaders being men?
It's actually 4 words. It's female, emotional, personal, and simple solutions. That I used to say that the capitalist machinery goes soft, and it is today products and services that are a little bit female, emotional, personal, and simple that are rewarded by the capitalist machinery. Yes, industry leaders are still male. Many politicians are still men. Things are changing, though. In Norway, for example, it's 50-50 in the government and the parliament. Pretty much 50-50. And it's no quotation or something like that. However, things are changing, and it's very easy to see why, because the universities are full of women. In most countries, it is now a significant majority of the students that are female. 55, 60, some faculties like medicine, 70, 80% of the students are women. Business, accounting, law, a majority is women. This means that in many areas we will have a lack of educated men. It is as simple as that. So in 5 to 10 years' time we will see a situation where there will primarily in many areas be only women available in that age segment.
And in regards to products, what is specifically feminine, for example?
Feminine has nothing to do with gender, as much as it is a what shall I say, a mood or a way of being, where you care a little bit about other human beings, where you think in terms of, in emotional terms, not only in rational terms. Men can be feminine too. It's quite okay. It's not so it has nothing to do with gender. It is just that caring perspective that today becomes completely natural. Why? Because of the environmental issue. You have to care about the planet. You have to care about waste. You have to care about recycling. To care has become something that we all have to do. So that's why I say the whole planet goes, in that sense, a little bit feminine, if you see what I mean. It's a feminization of our societies, where the old values of being hardcore, rational, aggressive, not particularly emotional, and push things forward aggressively, don't care very much about anything else than your own thing, which was probably a good idea way back in time, but today it doesn't feel like a very good idea.
Technology is necessary but not sufficient. What is sufficient for the success of a business?
Once upon a time, to sell a washing machine, for example, technology was the key thing. You know, I have the best technology. Your washing machine is not as good in technological terms as mine. Today, many people, most people would say, the technology is basically the same in all washing machines. There are some small differences. What makes the difference today might be look, shape, form, design. I will call it design. After-sales service. If someone comes to your home and install it, I used to say that the soft stuff in our time becomes the hard stuff. And the hard stuff, the washing machine, becomes the soft stuff. It's just necessary that you have a washing machine. But what makes all the difference is the soft stuff around it. The guarantees, whether it's delivered to your home, the look, the color, the shape, the functionality, that it's easy to maneuver, that it's safe for your children. All this stuff around it makes the difference. The actual washing machine, there are many washing machines.
And with this change of mindset, what are the consequences, for example, on people's perspective on families or values like that, families or even nations?
You know, something we have discussed that the whole day here today. Very fundamental things are changing in our lives. We don't form families to the same extent. If we look at the major cities around the world, I'm talking about London, Berlin, Moscow, what have you, about 50% of the population in those cities live alone, single households. In my hometown, Stockholm, 64% of the households are single people, a city of 1.8 million, the size of Munich. So something is happening to the family. We do not form families to the same extent as we did just 20 or 30 years ago. We are, so to say, moving out of the family. The nation state, well, the nation state is a tricky one. We talked a little bit, you and I, earlier today about it. I mean, Sweden, Switzerland, Holland are small countries, open economies. In a globalized world, which basically means that the nation state loses some of its power, some of its possibilities to protect the population, to take decisions, because the decisions are taken somewhere else. Maybe in Brussels, the European community, maybe in the White House, maybe in the international financial market, but not necessarily in Bern or the Stockholm. So the nation state becomes a weaker thing than what it was just 20, 25, 30 years ago. I don't think that we have seen really yet what this means and how it will affect politics. What we have seen in most European countries is that you have political parties with a nationalistic agenda. You know, like Geert Wilders in Holland, Herr Blocher here in Switzerland, Jörg Haider, that unfortunately died, in Austria, and now we have one in Sweden, Nationalist Party. And the whole idea is to strengthen Sweden, in our case then. And make Sweden more Swedish and not so much immigration and not so much internationalization, and to stop this weakening of the nation state. I'm not sure that that is possible, but at least that is what they are saying, that they would like to do. I think it will remain a dream. Globalization is such a powerful idea, and it's such a profitable idea for most people, that to leave globalization, stop globalization, would for most countries be very costly.
What are the drivers of capitalism today, and is capitalism even possible in the world of Web 2.0?
Actually, we are at a state now in human development where there is no real alternative to capitalism. Capitalism has, so to say, taken over completely. After 1989, when the wall came down in Berlin and the Soviet Union ceased to be, the only real alternative to capitalism, namely a planned economy, communist kind of economy, ceased to be. So, I mean, when you travel the world today, you see capitalism überalles, all over the place. China, capitalist. India, capitalism. Vietnam, capitalism. So that's number one. Number two, in the foreseeable future, I cannot see any alternative to capitalism that can compete, not in our lifetime, at least. It takes a lot of time to develop a whole new system that can compete with capitalism. You don't do that in a in an afternoon or something. It's not that kind of a thing. It's more sophisticated than that. The web, new technology. Actually, all the new technologies that we have seen have actually helped capitalism to function even better. Why? Because at the very heart of the capitalist machine, you find information transfer back and forth. The more information you can transfer, the better for the capitalist machine. It functions even better. So the web is great news for the capitalism.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Nordström, for sharing your visionary thoughts with us. And we really hope to see you soon here at GDI again, or in Zurich, Switzerland.
Thanks. Look forward to be back.